Okay, I'd like to call this session of the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board to order. A little housekeeping we have to do. We have one added item onto our agenda from Mr. Herm, who is sitting right back there. We have to re-approve his approval because there were some noticing issues before, but that's all been cleared up. Director assures me that's been properly dealt with, so we'll be dealing with that during our public hearing session. Have you all had a chance to read over Jim's meeting notes? And hopefully I can get a motion to approve? Second?
Second, sure.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Very good. We also have the July 6th minutes. I hope you've all had a chance to review them. Could I hear a motion to approve the minutes, please? Second?
Second, Jeff.
Very good. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I have no other correspondence or announcement. Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring up at this point? Okay. As you know, we're now starting our public hearings at 6:45, so I'd like you to move down to the bottom of our agenda, the new applications, and we will start with Michael Chambers at 59 Valley Way Road, site plan special use permit home renovations. Is Mr. Chambers here? Would you come up and explain to the planning board what you want to do? What Mr. Chambers wishes to do.
So I think you all have in front of you the application. I dropped off some plans here for you to review. Basically what it is there's a existing house that's been there since about 1860 or so, I believe. They're looking to renovate the main house, more or less adding a little bit of additional space. So if you look at, yeah, perfect. So the top of the screen there, the yellow and the patio area, and you have the pink and blue, that's retaining wall. The pink is the existing retaining wall. The blue is the proposed retaining wall. Pretty much the top where you see the little bump out bay there, that's where the existing kitchen is. There's a kind of a dotted line there. The grade section is the proposed addition for that kitchen. So the current kitchen is going to be taken down. The plan is to take it down. It doesn't have a proper foundation under it, and so we're planning to remove that and then add on to it. And then basically the middle green square, that is would be the proposed dining room. So that area is currently patio. That would then become dining room, and then the green rectangle is currently a porch. So we're looking to enclose the porch and make that kind of add on to what is the library now. So that's basically the plan. And then the second floor above the kitchen would be a guest suite, basically. There's another page very similar to that one. Yeah. So the purple, light purple on the right side there, that is the proposed bedroom, and then bathroom, and then that's pretty much the project.
And it is a historic structure, I take it from.
I believe it, yes, based on the date of construction.
Do you have any elevations digitally here that we could show?
The plans are we did submit full set of plans there. So
For the application?
I
These were
think-
the only two maps I thought I saw, were the.
yeah, we submitted a physical copy, but I should have sent an electronic copy of the plans as well.
We'll want those for the public hearing.
Yeah,
so-
no,
I see them in this packet that we have.
Okay, very good. Any members of the planning board have any questions for the applicant's representative? Okay. Well, I have a procedural resolution for this project. Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board directs as follows on the application by Michael Chambers for site plan and special use permit in the town code chapter 125 for modification to a single-family residence and other elements of the property 59 Valley Way Road. We're accepting the application, supporting documents is adequate for further review by the planning board, advisors, and public, and will be classified as type 2 under secret. We're going to schedule a public hearing on the application for August 16th at 6:45 p.m. The director could undertake or otherwise cause notice in the posting thereof. With the delegate planning board members,
I'll go.
Melody?
I go.
To conduct a site visit to the project site and report observations at the time of public hearing. We are going to refer to the Conservation Advisory Board concerning environmental factors, to the Waterfront Advisory Committee for consistency with the LWRP, to the HAPAC for review and written comment concerning historic and archaeological elements, to the historic nature of the property and project location within Hudson River National Historic Landmark District, and referring to Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for review. We're going to authorize without prejudice to any information or comment that may present at the public hearing or may arise based on both the website and field visits or referrals, preparation of a working draft of an approvals resolution for the planning board's consideration on August 16th or as the later time. Could I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Very good. What you want to do is get in touch with Melody and Joe to set up the site visit. And on the 16th, you know, if we can have everything digitally, so we can put it up here, the elevations and everything like that.
Make sure that correction is all that. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We'll try and coordinate the site visit with
Right.
APAC representatives.
Yes, yes. So just, hopefully just have to be one site visit.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Okay. Rudy's, 3718 Route 9G, site plan special use permit modification of existing building and a planned new building and additions. Mr. Gominski.
Seth will be
Or
presenting tonight.
or Seth.
Mr. Stick.
Mr. Seth.
Good evening. My name is Seth Stickle. I work with Mark Kaminsky, PLSPC, and we're here tonight to represent Rudy's Automotive Inc. and their application for a phased development approach to 3718 Route 9G, the stamp site. We have, in addition to the material that we have previously submitted, we have prepared a brief presentation. Tonight, we are presenting the phased development. We'll have details of that. Should this board deem that our phased development approach is acceptable, it will allow the applicant to move forward with the purchase of the property and development and realization of the development. If you could go to slide 2, please. And the next slide, please. So just providing a little background information on the existing sites. Rudy's Automotive Inc. has enjoyed selling and servicing automobiles in the greater Rhinebeck area for over 80 years. Existing auto sales and motor vehicle repair and service establishment businesses are located at, for Rudy's Subaru, everyone's familiar with that in the village, right on Route 9. Rudy's Chrysler Jeep and Dodge at the Route 9 and 9G intersection, as well as Rudy's Ford, located on Route 9G. These businesses have enjoyed regular growth and now employ over 115 full-time employees. With growth comes challenges in balancing community presence with necessary improvements, placing pressure on the existing sites, each with unique operational characteristics. After extensive consideration, Rudy's has concluded that relocation of its motor vehicle repair and service establishments will enhance its overall business operations, allowing for a reduction in the intensity of the uses at the current sites and a redistribution of inventory and enhancement of existing sales facilities in keeping with community character. The proposed site. As I mentioned, is located on Route 9G, in between the Route 9 and 9G intersections and the bridge approach. The Office Research Park District was identified as one of the few parcels in Rhinebeck with potential to accommodate Rudy's development goals. This site has sufficient land and optimal characteristics to accommodate the proposed development. Working with the town board, the zoning schedule of use regulations was updated to include the use motor vehicle repair and service establishment in the ORP district, with site plan approval and special use permit required. The Stanford campus and surrounding area compromises most of the land in the ORP district, approximately 139 acres. allowing for ample buffers and from adjacent streets and adjoining land uses, helping to achieve the town's objective for expanding the employment opportunities and community tax base while maintaining community character. Ruby's proposes a three-phase development approach. Phase 1 and Phase 2 will use approximately 14 acres to relocate existing motor vehicle repair and service establishments, redeveloping the existing site building and utilizing some of the existing open space, leaving the balance of the site as a buffer for potential Phase 3 development. With relocating the motor vehicle and repair and service establishments, the existing business locations will enjoy less density, traffic, and congestion, increasing the availability of parking in the village, Ruby Subaru, and more green space at the corner of Route 9 and 9G, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, which are requirements of the town board zoning amendment negotiations. So just to briefly go over the existing site. I know many of you have visited the site and are very familiar with it. This is the existing 139 acres. It is actually two parcels. The main parcel, which currently has the stamp building, is located just down to the southeast portion of this, and up along Middle Road is a very small sliver of additional property. Both parcels are included in this application.
We have a country.
What you note on the existing site conditions is that there is an existing access along Route 9G. That's important because Route 9G is a heavily trafficked road, and there are some restrictions with the density that's allowable in site development based on those restrictions. We have identified and flagged some wetlands and sensitive areas within our development area. The existing building has a substantial amount of hard surface area as well as existing structures. There are large structures over 40,000 square feet, and there's approximately 2 acres of existing hard surface area. We can go to the next slide, please. So the site plan application and the overall phase development is proposed in 3 phases. Phase 1, Rugi Subaru, relocation of the motor vehicle repairs operations from the village. As part of this, and the application before you, is the site plan and special use permit details. For Phase 2, that would be relocation of the Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at the intersections of 9 and 9G, and Rhinebeck Ford on 9G for the motor vehicle repair and service operations, alleviating some of that pressure on the town. This also, in Phase 2, will require an additional application to this board for site plan and special use permit. The third phase of development, I should just note, Phase 1 is mostly just the existing area. Phase 2 is a small development, 7 acres, within the existing field, and then the remainder of the balance of property is what we are calling and considering Phase 3. Phase 3 is a potential future development per the ORP zoning district. At this time, we have no proposals for Phase 3, and that any Phase 3 development would require, again, site plan, special use permit approval from this board. So Phase 1, it's been highlighted here just for clarity. We can go to the next slide, please. So Phase 1 is proposing to repurpose the existing building and existing site improvements. In net, we are asking to add just 6,000 square feet of hard surface area to this site. It is proposed to repurpose the existing facility to accommodate Ruby's motor vehicle and repair services for Subaru. There's an existing metal extension to the building which will be removed, and that area will be reused for parking, a swap of impervious for impervious. We look to add a service drive, and that will be where customers come in and engage. They come in off of 9G and engage directly through the service drive with Ruby's employees. From that point on, Ruby's employees only use the rest of the site. The facility will have unique branding and points of contact for the customers, signage specific to a Subaru development. Parking areas will be slightly expanded, as you can see here. Again, mostly within the existing hard surface area. As well, there will be a service drive. This will be considered just a service drive for deliveries or any other larger vehicles. The building is also being evaluated for an electric solution supported by roof-mounted solar. No proposals at this time, but we are evaluating. Next slide, please. Phase 2 of the development, which is located in this area highlighted. Phase 2 is proposed to relocate both the Route 9 and at the intersection of 9 and 9G and the Rhinebeck Ford on 9G facilities to a new building. That new building will accommodate and be built out for any future growth and capacity for both the Chrysler Jeep Dodge and as well as the Ford facilities. Access will be shared with the Subaru building, and a small extension of that access will be provided here. For customers will again come into a drive-through drop-off area, and that will be where they would lounge, and then the remainder of the site would be used by Ruby's employees. A brief extension of the service drive is included with this so that we will be able to maintain all truck traffic and other larger vehicles on the outside. Most of the front will be only customer facing. The parking areas will be developed to accommodate staging for new products prior to moving them to the sales lots, either in the town or the village, in this case the town, and for customer vehicles pending service. This building is also being designed as a complete electric solution supported by roof-mounted solar installations and EV charging stations throughout. Phase 3 of the development would be the balance of the site. One thing I'd just like to point out before we move on to the next slide is that required by the ORP zone in this area is a 200-foot buffer from the property boundary. In addition, we have some wetland areas, so we provided, these are Army Corps of Engineers, so we provided the 100-foot town required buffer. In doing that, you'll see that you limit quite considerably the amount of usable area. If we could go to the next slide, please. In addition to that, the future development would be limited by other site constraints: steep slopes, ACOE, additional ACOE wetlands, DEC wetlands, town wetlands, as well as archaeology. Any proposed use in Phase 3 would require meeting the ORP zoning requirements, and overall the density is limited by a turn lane which is required in Phase 2. The most important thing is that the natural buffer will be preserved and maybe even improved in the third stage. If you could go to the next slide. This is just a brief planned use of the site, traffic patterns and signage. Specifically, there's an existing entrance and an existing entrance sign. This existing entrance will need to be reconfigured per New York State DOT requirements. We're currently working on that process with DOT, and they have given us a conceptual approval of a reconfiguration of that entrance, as well as to improve sight distance to the north. We need to clear a little bit of this hill. The existing signage will be replaced by something representative of this sign configuration. The lighting will be external and downwards, and as I mentioned, the entrance will need to be reconfigured. The site will be developed for both customer and vendors. As I mentioned, customers will come in and go into this area for the Subaru building. Customers would come in and go into this area for the Phase 2 building. All other traffic, trucks, deliveries, everything else will be utilizing the service drive in the back of the property. Planned lighting. Clearly we will be meeting all of the code requirements for lighting. We're still working on exactly how the layout of Phase 1's lighting plan will be, and we'll provide those details when available. We are looking for downward direction lighting shielded from the building, as well as freestanding poles, so it'll be a mix. Standing poles will not exceed 15 feet, and our proposed color temperature is in the neighborhood of 5,000 kelvins. It's considered neutral. There will be no central Hudson lighting or anything like that on this property. Operation and function, the standing poles will be used for drive lanes and parking areas. They will be on during business hours only. They will be photo cell controlled. At after hours, there may be some areas where motion detection will be necessary. Building lighting will be for security and safety. And there is a drop-off kiosk for anyone who is arriving after hours, and we will need to provide some safety lighting for that as well. As with all developments, we will be using stormwater management techniques and green infrastructure practices in the overall development of phases. As I mentioned, phase 1 is proposing just 6,000 additional square feet of hard surface area. So we'll be looking to utilize green infrastructure practices to preserve natural features and work within the site footprint to provide some sort of water quality treatment. The water quantity treatment for the site is actually controlled by the on-site pond, which is considered part of the New York State DEC wetland. Standard stormwater management practices include vegetated swales, natural plantings, landscaping, small retention ponds, and infiltration practices. We will be providing a pre- and post-development analysis for all phases of development. Implementation of the stormwater management practices requires some education for the people who use them on site, consideration for how to make them easy to maintain, and we will also require stormwater pollution prevention plans as part of the state requirements. That would mostly be for phase 2 and phase 3. The planned use of the site, customers and employee use patterns. Customers and employees will be entering and leaving the site primarily between the hours of 6:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. Current employees will relocate to this site, so anyone that works in the vehicle repair and service facilities currently in the village or the town will be relocated to this site. Customer patterns are changing. Historical drop-off and pickup routines are being replaced with specific appointment times, so that will help us maintain the flow of traffic on the site and also estimate what our intended use would be, our peak use would be. Vendor traffic, as I had mentioned, all other vehicles other than customers will be using our service drive. Next slide, please. So just to summarize, the Office Research Park District is one of the few sites in Rhinebeck which is located in a non-residential district and is sufficient size and depth to accommodate a proposed service campus center, that's what we're calling it. The campus and surrounding area compromises most of the land in that district, 139 acres, allowing for ample buffer and from adjacent streets and properties. Ruby's proposes to use approximately 14 acres. That is just the area that I identified in the highlighted portions. There are many, like I said, the buffer, the 200-foot natural buffer that's maintained from the property obviously will not be developed, and that would be included in anything south of our proposed development area. So there's a considerable portion of the property with the existing development and proposed phase 2, approximately 1/3 of it, that will be completely consumed by this project. There is obviously the benefit for this is that there will be a decreased intensity of use in both the village and the town. And that will be beneficial for both the public as well as the development, realization of the development will be especially beneficial for Ruby's. Mark and myself are here to entertain any additional questions should the board have them.
Members of the board, any questions for Seth and Mark? I have one question, and I know we've discussed this before. Under seeker, I think this is going to be an unlisted action. It doesn't seem to broach any of the thresholds for type 1. But still, we need to avoid segmentation. Obviously, it's a phase project when we understand that what's really being applied for here is just phase 1 as opposed to a master plan or something like that. But I think we need to undertake seeker for all three phases to avoid segmentation. I think they're going to be able to provide the information we need for phase one and phase two without any trouble. We're going to need some sort of narrative, I think, about potential uses for phase three. Possibly also detailing, the limited land available there because of natural constraints, buffers, and all that sort of thing, so that we can actually completely, do a proper seeker review and then determination of significance.
So Michael, it can be done in a narrative form, correct?
Yeah, I think that's, you don't know what you want to do yet, so if you do anything quantitative or anything like that would probably be unrealistic, but I think it's sufficient narrative, probably stressing the constraints, the limitations of what could potentially go there, things of that sort. I think we've discussed the traffic situation with the turn lane. I don't think anyone wants to see another traffic light on 9G. Is that constraint what might be able to happen in phase three in terms of potential traffic generation, something like that. Things like that that might speak to what's going to happen in phase one and phase two that might impact any improvements to the site, or improvements to public transportation, any of that sort of stuff that would come up for phase three, how that might limit what could happen in phase three.
Okay, so then it would be, so obviously, site-specific to phase three for specific uses.
Correct.
Only general discussion with, for example, maybe elaborate on that, for phase three, we can have detailed steep slopes, maybe roughly identify some wetland areas and adjacent areas associated with it, and be able to, and also, Seth mentioned that it's that 200-foot adjacent area around the entire property. That's not specific to the ORP zone, it's specific to the special permit for application, that was part of the town board's
Rezoning.
dialogue that was included with that. So it's only specific to this piece.
And possibly the traffic would probably be the main issue that would impact people off the site. I don't know when you did the traffic study, whatever, if that'll give you any sort of guidelines of an upper limit of what, the turn lane would service, things like that, before the DOT might start thinking of something more odorous for that site.
Well, because of the existing geometry of near Route 9G, and actually in this case, the location of the entrance for IXL drives the geometry for the turn lane. In other words, you can only stack so many cars within that turn lane. So that certainly will have an effect on obviously Ruby's want to satisfy the conditions for phase one and phase two with their proposals are, but with regard to phase three, I think that does come into play. Just the existing site conditions and the existing geometry, or in this case, what DOT has agreed to as allowable geometry for the turn.
Okay, thank you.
Just to add, is there any consideration for the phase development, knowing that we will be coming back for phase two for a full site plan and special use permit application, as well as that would be a requirement for phase three, that secret be conducted on phase one, phase two, and phase three independent?
I don't think we can do that. I think that definitely would be segmentation, especially since we know what phase one is going to be. We have a pretty good idea what phase two is going to entail in terms of both size of buildings, other things such as, wastewater, things of that sort, water usage, traffic. So I think that would really bump us into the segmentation problem. We want to just try to the best way to avoid that. And I think we can, but I think we need to be cognizant of that and do our best to avoid that. Any other questions or comments from members from Mark and Seth?
I think it's probably an obvious answer, but the existing facilities for all of the automotive current spaces, those will then just be occupied for sales, but they'll all still exist in the way they do?
Yes. Yeah, so the existing sales facilities in the village and the two in the town, those will remain as sales only. So all servicing and prep, as mentioned here, are going to be moved to the new site.
Am I correct, however, that in the discussions, the layout of the buildings at 9 and 9G might very well change going forward when the service relocates from there?
First, apologize for being late. I looked at an old agenda there. The plan for 99G would be, there's 2 buildings there currently. That would be reduced to a single building. We don't really know, but probably the size of the larger 2 today.
Correct, but partial answer to Delise, there would be what we've perceived up to date as improvements
Yeah.
at the 9 and 9G corridor
Significant.
with the relocation of the service from there.
Same with 4.
Exactly, thank you.
Although I think, just to make sure everyone understands, that's not part of this application.
Correct.
So that no one thinks that these 2 things are dependent on one another. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I have a resolution. Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board directs as follows: the application by Rubens for site plan and special use permit on County Chapter 125 for modification to an existing building and associated site improvements as phase 1 of a 3-phase project of 3718 Route 9G within the Office Research Park zoning district. Approval is for phase 1 only, though the overall phasing plan is to be recorded in this application. We accept the application and supporting documents as adequate for further review by the planning board, its advisors, and the public, and classify the action as unlisted under seeker. We are going to schedule a public hearing on the application for August 16th at 6:45 p.m. And we're going to delegate planning board members. I know most of us have been there, but it wouldn't hurt. You want to go?
Yes.
Okay, Sean?
I'll go.
Sean and Delise? To do the site visit. We are going to refer this to the Conservation Advisory Board for comment concerning environmental factors. And we're going to refer to HAPAC for review and written comment concerning historic and archaeological elements. And we're going to refer it to the Dutchess County Public Planning Development for review. And we will authorize without prejudice to any information or comments that may be presented at the public hearing or may arise based on both the above cited field visit and referral, preparation of working draft of the approvals resolution for the planning board's consideration on August 16th or as may be later kindly. Could I hear a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Melody.
Second?
Second, please.
Thank you, Delise. Any comment or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Y'all, you want to get with Joe or Delise for the site visit?
I will. And so also, so with regard to, obviously, as Seth indicated in the initial presentation, this is our first, application to the board. And so obviously, more site details are being developed, as you mentioned, with regard to, lighting, landscaping, stormwater management, to say the least. And so those materials we'll continue to work on those materials along with, I'm assuming, as part of this application, just what we discussed about expanding the narrative section of phase 3 to.
That I think would be very helpful.
Okay.
And just one more thing. It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that much of what you're proposing, certainly for phase 1 and somewhat in phase 2, well, phase 1 has little or no impact on archaeology. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it's limited in perhaps the potential scope in phase 2. Can you, as part of this, just make that clear? So that we're, as many of you may remember, there's an extensive archaeological resource on the property that the applicant has been more than willing to work with us to protect, but the impact would come in much later phases.
It would be in phase 2, and then also I note that
Potentially in
there's been no,
Right.
site examination for
Okay.
the
So I
balance of the
just
property.
wanted to be clear for your benefit that the first phase we'll be looking at when we get the specifics will not have.
We're using, so for phase 1, we're using the existing space and
Exactly.
the existing disrupted area.
Exactly.
Phase 2, we have worked with the archaeology people.
Right.
We have a plan to do that. Phase 3, or any other use of the property, would probably require some degree of examination as well.
Right. So we're all on the same page. Thank you.
And that can all be referred to also in the secret review for the overall project.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have one more new application, Rhinebeck Community Nursery School.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Stotts. I am the director of Rhinebeck Community Nursery School. The nursery school has been helping young children to grow in social and emotional resiliency, gain confidence to explore and experiment, and form lasting family friendships for the last 24 years. Our recent one-year closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic and our subsequent necessary relocation has sorely strained our finances. Throughout this, the RCNS families and board have remained committed to supporting and guiding the school so it remains serving preschoolers of Rhinebeck as the only nonprofit half-day early education program. We ask you to accept these applications with all due haste as we near the beginning of the 2021 academic school year so that we can continue to prepare these children for a lifetime of learning and bring their families together. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'd like to introduce Mr. Patrick Logan to speak on our behalf.
Good evening, everyone. I'll try to keep this brief because I think it's a fairly straightforward application. As you are all aware, several years ago, the Brookmead Assisted Living Facility was approved by this board. The nursery school is looking to move into one room in an existing building on that site. It's in the bottom left corner, which is actually the northwest of the site. That room was approved as a fitness facility. We are seeking to move into that room, which is approximately, we're seeking to move into that room to use that as the new site of the nursery school. There will be no change to the building, no exterior architectural changes. In fact, the primary change to the site would be the addition of a small playground, which is that little polygon outlined in red to the left of the building. It's about 2,700 square feet. It would contain playground equipment. It would be fenced in a black fence that is matching the style and color of other fencing on the property. And we are also proposing a series of older bollards, essentially, in between the playground and the parking lot, just to ensure that there are no safety issues. If the planning board would like to visit, because the nursery school has actually had to move out of its prior location, it has moved a fair amount of its materials to the site, though it is not operating a nursery school at this time. However, that said, we do have some playground equipment placed in generally the area where we are trying to establish a playground. So if you were to perform a site visit, you would be able to pretty clearly see what this playground would be. Finally, though we believe that this is a pretty minor change, we wanted to ensure that the infrastructure at the site could accommodate this. We had Shazen look at the wastewater treatment plant for the site and look at the expected increase in demand for wastewater treatment. Going from a fitness facility to a playground, or not just a playground, to a playground and nursery, is an increase of about 48 gallons per day. The capacity for the treatment facility is 30,000. So this is a negligible change. With that, we'll answer any questions you have, but as the applicant has stated, they're trying to get moving, so I figure I'll just let you move ahead with any procedural steps that you might want to take at this time.
I guess as you know, Brookmead has been served with a notice of apparent violation
That is correct.
for the installation of the playground equipment, other site changes without coming before the planning board to amend their site plan, which of course will be required. Also, if you have read, and I assume you probably have, the approval resolution for the community center, the adult community center. I have something here. In the July 17th, 2017 approval resolution for the Brookmead Center Adult Daycare, Community Room Fitness Center, Cafe and Business was originally divided called Adult Daycare, Day Camp Facility, and Brookmead Accessory Uses, which obviously are for senior citizens, not for children. We do have a special use permit and site plan for nursery schools. And we do require a special permit site plan. It requires a minimum acreage equivalent to the density acreage within the zoning district in which that proposal is being put forward. This is in a 5-acre zone. So it would take 5 acres set aside to have a nursery school or daycare center placed in that area. I believe you could apply to the zoning board of appeals for a variance on that. It's in chapter 12568 under nursery school and daycare center. It's also an unused table. It has come to our attention that children have been using the site already and using the equipment there without permits from us, without any site plan approval, without any approvals whatsoever, which if nothing else certainly puts both Brookmead and the nursery school, I would imagine, at liability for allowing that material to be used. If a kid was on the monkey bars or whatever and fell off and broke his arm, I don't know if we would have any insurance coverage for that sort of thing, because this is not an approved use there. We're not even sure whether the nursery school can exist on this site. This is something the zoning enforcement officer is going to have to look into, possibly the ZBA. There are a number of questions that have come up with this, and that's why Brookmead did receive, and I hope they shared with you the notice of apparent violation. If they did, we certainly will. I think what you need to do is you need to sit down, you need to come in and talk to the zoning enforcement officer to see exactly how this all stands. Right now, it's very difficult for me to see how what's going on there right now can simply be ignored. I mean, you put in equipment, you change the site there, the physical changes to the exterior of the building. And as I said, we're not even sure this use is allowed on this site, on the Brookmead site, given what the approvals were for that building. So I think at your earliest opportunity, what you want to do is come and talk to the zoning enforcement officer to try and see exactly where all this stands and exactly how it might be addressed and remediated.
That is all well received, and we have looked at this notice of apparent violation. Speaking to the previous approval, which obviously was not for a children's daycare, given that this site and this project was reviewed so recently by this board, we are asking that you view this as essentially an amendment to that site plan. So that, yes, this would be a new use in addition to what was approved previously. As far as the nursery school, there have been children at the site, and they have tours and appointments for prospective students in the future. However, any and all summer programs have been canceled, and that is not going to be an issue moving forward. And with regard to the alleged physical changes at the site, we have been trying to get in touch with Ms. Turk today. We were not able to do so. We do have a good faith disagreement over the application of the code. We don't believe that these playground pieces were actually installed, and essentially they were just moved because our applicant had to move from its old space and it needed a place to put this, and there's no footings. It has not been permanently placed anywhere, so because of that we don't feel that it has been developed yet, but of course these are things we're going to try to discuss with Michelle as soon as possible.
I appreciate it. I think one of the key things we need to look into is this use allowed on the Brookmead site, given what the approvals for Brookmead have been. I mean, clearly, it's a senior citizen community with different services at different levels of need for senior citizens. And the community center, which a number of us were here for the approval and review of that, was for senior citizens and for their uses only, not for the general public, for example, and not for uses that would not come under the heading of senior citizen uses. So I think that's something that really does need to be looked at. It's conceivable a use variance could be applied for, but they are difficult to get. And that's perhaps the first thing we need to resolve with the zoning enforcement officer, is whether or not the use itself at this time, under the current zoning law, the way it's written, is actually allowed.
Well, I do believe that daycare facilities are permitted subject to site plan and special use in this district.
You know, they're allowed in the 5-acre district, but what you have here is a building and a site which was approved, the uses approved for adult uses.
Yes.
This is not an adult use.
No, this would be an amendment and in addition to that adult use.
But that use in that site would have to come before the planning board. You would be basically not just doing a site plan amendment, you'd be doing a special use permit difference, because a nursery school, daycare center are special permit uses. They're not accessory uses to adult uses or other forms of residential or commercial use.
That is correct, and we have submitted a special use permit application as part of this.
And that's what the ZEO has to determine, whether or not that is a valid application. And they're the planning board can't interpret the zoning law. We can't tell you it can be done or cannot be done. We don't have that authority. Only the zoning enforcement officer. And then if one disagrees with the zoning enforcement officer, the zoning board of appeals can rule on what that is. And if you don't like what they say, then of course it goes to Article 78.
Well, let's hope we don't reach that.
That would be extraordinarily time consuming. So really, the sooner you can get this resolved, if the use is allowed, if you do perhaps need an area variance, it does require 5 acres for a nursery school or a daycare center, which will be set aside for that particular use. I mean, there are a number of complications here which need to be resolved before the planning board can pick up this application.
Understood.
And I apologize for that. I know it's a very good service, it's a good facility, but we are bound by the law and we are required to administer the law as it's written and as it is interpreted by the zoning board of appeals and the zoning enforcement officer.
Well, with respect to the acreage, the site has, I believe, more than ample acreage to handle both this and the assisted living community, but we can obviously provide more information and
I
calculations.
think what you would find is that the 5 acres has to be dedicated to this particular use. Just as the previous applicant, who was saying in phase 1, a specific acreage is being dedicated to phase 1. A specific acreage is being dedicated to phase 2, and a specific acreage within that site is being dedicated to phase 3. We have other things, such as we have an application for a country Inn 2. They have about 500 and something acres. They have to dedicate 250 acres to that use. And it cannot be, siphoned off somewhere else. When there's an acreage requirement for a use, that acreage has to be dedicated to that use. It can't be used for other purposes unless the actual zoning use permits multiple uses of a given acreage. Like shared parking, things like that, which are often allowed for multiple uses.
And to all of this, we have been attempting to get in touch with Mr. Turk, and we're trying to do so as soon as possible after this. Is there anything else?
I think that's enough. And I wish it were not this way. It's a very good facility and the community needs it. But the law says, as we understand it at the moment, these are the restraints that we're under. And we don't want to find ourselves doing something that then does bring some nasty sense of liability down on either you or on people, valuable community assets.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, I just have a general question for you.
Yes.
What sort of responsibility does Brookmead have, for allowing different uses within the facility?
They are technically
They
the property.
They own the property.
And the applicants, they can designate, they can allow nursery school to represent them, but the responsibility falls to Brookmead as the owner of the property, does it not?
Yes, my apologies. Walking right through.
No, it's okay.
And we have received their authorization to move forward with this, and also to use their site plan as the basis for our site.
But ultimately, is the owner there responsible for, they can delegate you to be the representative and then move forward, but
Correct.
If something happens, you're not the one who's going to be held liable for it. They will be if someone gets hurt on the property.
That's understood.
Is that,
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, we now have a series of public hearings.
so is there anything we need to schedule, or are we just
I
deferring this?
think they need to speak to the zoning enforcement officer. We don't have anything scheduled yet, public or anything like that. So until the CEO tells us what we can and can't do, then the applicant will kind of stuck. Our first public hearing, Mike Acanato, 122 Martin Road, site plan and special use permit, ground mounted solar.
Hi, my name is Richard Countryman. I'm representing Mr. Michael Acevedo at 122 Morton Road. We are proposing a 19.24 kW ground mounted solar array. I met with Joe and Melody last Friday to take a look at the view shed issue. We had submitted a short form EAF, an agricultural data statement, and a coastal assessment form in preparation for this meeting. We have posted a road road sign, letting everybody know about the town meeting and put an article in the Daily Freeman paper ahead of this meeting as well. And here we are for the public hearing.
And who did the site visit? Please let us know what you thought.
Well, where they're proposing the solar panels is along the back of the, it's basically in the back of the garage that's attached to the house. I think that's the garage, right? It's along the tree line, which is, it's basically the tree line and then it's woods to the neighbor's yard. So there's ample coverage. You can hardly even see the neighbor's house from where they're proposing to put this in. When you look towards the river, there's also trees and foliage that blocks this from the near side of the river, seeing it if you're on the river. The far side, you would be able to potentially see it, but the way that the solar panels are on the property, it would be a profile of the side of the panels, so it's a minimal disturbance from any sight line that we saw.
In addition to that, the panels themselves will be stepped in a way that will diminish the ability to even really see there. And they're running, obviously they're parallel to the property, so it'll be a very small slice that you could possibly see. There is a very remote, a lot of the tree line is deciduous, and there will be a loss of potential increase in view, but we couldn't see when we were on the property that posed a problem at all. There's a lot of underbrush and coverage right along the interior property line, and it was you stated that they have no intention of clearing that in any way. They're just going to let whatever's there as for foliage of any kind, keep it minimal in terms of and by the way, it is a very long driveway, and there is absolutely zero possibility of anyone seeing. I mean, you wouldn't even know there was anything on the property. So I don't think that the only thing that you would be concerned with would be view shed issues with this. And I think the profile, even from across the river and on the river, is so small that I just don't see any impact at all. We observe that the biggest visual impact will be to the owners of the property.
Right.
And obviously, if they're happy living with it, that's fine.
Great, thank you.
Do we have a report from the CAB or WAC? Would they like to report tonight? Questions, comments from members of the planning board? Questions or comments from members of the public? All righty, could I hear a motion to close the public hearing, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second, Joe.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Very good. I have a resolution. On Mr. Osanato's application, we reaffirm the proposed action is typed under seeker, and based upon the submitted information, including reports from the planning board and others, we find the proposed work is consistent with the objectives in chapter 125, and we find the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with general standards of special use permits, and we grant the special use permit upon granting of the site plan. With respect to site plan, we find the proposed work intended consistent with site plan requirements, and we grant the site plan approval under the following conditions to be fulfilled within 6 calendar months. Submission to the website of site plan in the form and numbers specified in the code chapter 125, creating an outstanding fees of interest want to do to the town of Rhinebeck, and the receipt of all approvals, authorizations, or certifications required herein or from any other town, county, state, or other agencies required to undertake the proposed actions. Could I hear a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Molly.
Second?
Second, Joe.
I will poll the board. Elise?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Melody?
Aye.
Kathy? Joe?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you very much.
So as soon as I get the thing I stamp and sign it, we can get the building permit to install.
Fantastic, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yes. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay. What I'm going to do now is we have a number of things which are requested to be continued, and I'd just like to run down those quickly in case people are here to talk to those so that you know that we won't be getting any further information tonight on these, and we will be continuing the public hearing so we have an opportunity to speak. The first one is Hannah Barrett at 317 Mill Road, site plan or special use permit. Has asked to be continued to August 16th at 6:45, but if anybody came tonight to speak to that one, they're welcome to do so at this time. Hearing none, Could I hear a motion to continue Ms. Barrett's public hearing to August 16th at 6:45 PM, please?
So, second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Catherine Whitman, I understand, is also asked to have her public hearing continue until August 16th? August 16th at 6:45 PM. But anyone who came to speak to that tonight is welcome to do so at this time. Okay, here,
In response to a question from Delise earlier, you will continue to be responsible for the site visit?
But we have to wait until after, before the public hearing or after?
before.
Just before, we have to just, now that there's changes, we're still, okay.
No, the public hearing is scheduled,
Yeah, okay.
so you need to make the visit
Right, and we'll
before,
just be continuing it to the
before
16th.
8/16.
All right, here we go. Could I hear a motion to continue Catherine Whitman's public hearing to August 16th at 6:45 PM, please?
So moved, no.
Second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. James Steinberg at 214 River Road, site plan approval, review, pool installation, has requested to have his public hearing continued to September 20th at 6:45 PM. Could I hear a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second?
Second, Joe.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Michelle Moyer at 30 Highly Road, site plan special use permit, ground mounted solar. Did anyone come to speak to that tonight? That will be continued. Okay. Could I hear a motion to continue? Yes,
Is there anybody from the applicant?
I don't think so, because they requested before to have it continued, so they weren't going to show up tonight.
I have a question for the applicant, but they're not here, I can't ask.
Yeah. You can submit it to us and we can get out of them. You can submit it to the night of the public hearing as well, whichever you wish to do.
Here, sure.
Sure.
All right, during the initial Zoom meeting, one of the things that myself and some of my neighbors forgot to inquire about was how much energy the two planned solar panels will actually generate. And we were interested in, is it generating enough for just their use? They need those two massive panels to do, to generate enough for their use, or is it their use plus 1, plus 2, plus 3? That was a concern of ours. Down at the bottom of our road, Wolcott has 4 panels, and each of the 2 panels the applicant's putting in each one is larger than those 4 combined.
Yeah, that's definitely a question for the applicant. I do not know the answer to that. But we'll get that.
Okay.
But you've been filmed, so now we can.
Right.
Oh,
Yes.
smiles.
Anyone else wish to speak tonight on this one? Okay, could I have a motion to continue the public hearing to August 16th at 6:45 PM for Michelle Moyer, please?
So moved, please.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adding one on for Mr. Hearn. Oh, well, we'll do Mr. Hearn first, then we'll do Mr. Okay, Joel?
Joel Herm, owner of 443 Mill Road with Susan Hoffbaum. We have an application in to put in a small hydro generator on what used to be the Wilderstein stone dam to only power our house. It won't be a commercial use of the electricity. We only powering our net zero house, so we just
Any questions from members of the planning board? I know we did the site visit report. Any members of the community have anything they wish to say? Yes. You could come up to the microphone, please?
Yes, you'd like me to?
Yeah, we'd like to get you on film here.
I can. Come up. Sorry, I'm just trying to find some notes.
Hi everyone, nice to meet everyone in public. I'm Nick.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Just say that first. I'm Nick Mittal, one of the owners of 473 Mill Road, which is adjacent to Mr. Hearn's property and shares the, shares the border of the property on the back, but not at the front. At the front, it's shared with Mr. Nelson. I guess thanks for letting me speak. I would say a few things. first, I didn't see this on the agenda when it came out, and I, for some reason, did not get the notice. I'm not sure why about the notice, but not seeing it on the agenda, so I was not unable to submit comment.
It was a procedural error on our part.
Yeah.
We were thinking this was going to be in August, and it turns out I made a mistake.
All good, just saying that that's why I'm not very prepared. Second, I think it was during the last planning board meeting that the board decided to seek the guidance of council. There's been I'm a new owner here, as you all know, because I came before the planning board myself, and there seems to have been a rather complex and long history of, this project. And after the board decided to seek the guidance of council, I decided that I should retain counsel as well. And so I've retained Sean Kemp to assist me in this matter. And I know that he's spoken with, I believe it's Kim Gallagher, and so I'm just trying to get up to speed. There's been a lot of conflict related to this. Some of that conflict centers around the right of the use of the abandoned road that is close to the dam and an easement that persists there. And that resulted in a lawsuit which is still outstanding. And there was a countersuit of alleged trespass by Mr. Hearn onto my property. I believe that issue is still outstanding as well. And so I would love to just try to work all of this out now that I have counsel. My counsel has also spoken with Mr. Hearn's counsel on 2 occasions, I think, since the last planning board meeting. And so I guess that's the bulk of what I want to say. And I say, finally, I think that my counsel also has some questions about some of the technical specs of what Mr. Hearn is doing. I think that the project is listed as a 10 kilowatt capacity turbine, and the turbine in the picture in the application is bigger than a person. And I think he's talking about his home having a 1.5 kilowatt need, and so it's 4 to 6 times bigger, depending on how much it runs, 4 to 6 times bigger than his need. And there was a previous iteration of this that contemplated commercial use, which is one of the other reasons for my concern. So those are my comments.
I spoke with John Lyons, our attorney, and Kim, about the 2 issues. One was the lawsuit, and they said that doesn't impact our ability as a planning board to move forward with the application, because it's basically not subject to the planning board's overview, the town of Rhinebeck's overview. The other was about whether the easement had to be rewritten, which suggested that possibly Jonathan Mensch, the owner of the other property who had paid the easement, would at some point purchase electricity from Mr. Hearn. And that also, whether or not that happens, that would not be something that would impact our ability to deal with this application. I've been told by Mr. Hearn that's not going to happen. I don't know what the status of the 2 lawsuits are, other than to say that I know that they don't impact our ability to move forward this time. We do have one of the conditions in the approval resolution that per the Dutchess County Department of Transportation's requirement, the Fox Hollow Road cannot be used as access to the property. The one on Mill Road has to be used. They only allow 1 residential use. If there is 1 residential use, then there cannot be a second one. It does offer the opportunity that if Mr. Hearn needed to use it for an emergency, something like that, if he went to the Dutchess County Department of Transportation to get a temporary use permit, he could do that. But he cannot use it on a regular basis. It cannot be used as access to the property. The Mill Road driveway has to be used as the access to the property.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say this evening? Okay. Could I hear a motion to close the public hearing, please?
So moved, Melody.
Second. Thank you, Denise. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Okay, I will go through this. With respect to Mr. Hearn's application, we're trying to just, go quickly. I want everyone to know we are posting all these resolutions on our town website prior to these meetings, so people can read them before they come to these meetings if they so choose. We're reaffirming this type 2 under seeker, and based upon the information we have received, we find the proposed work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 1 through 5, and we find that it is consistent with the special use permit requirements, general standards, and we're going to grant the special use permit upon granting the site plan. In respect to the application for wetlands permit, we are also going to authorize a wetlands permit as we find the use to be consistent with the requirements for wetlands permits. And we're going to have the wetland permit based upon site plan. With respect to the application for site plan, we find the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with Town Code Chapter 125 and approve the application inclusive of the application materials by Joel Hearn and plans by Rhinebeck Engineering dated January 25th, 2021. And we're authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above-cited site plan upon the application's satisfaction of below conditions or requirements within 6 calendar months of the adoption of this resolution. Where the Dutchess County Department of Public Works traffic engineer, access to the property must be taken from existing driveway on Mill Road. Receipt of all required variances from the town of Rhinebeck, which I believe have been received. Right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I have to take my glasses off to read, so I can't tell who the heck is out there. Submission of the above-cited site plan in the form and number specified in Town Code Chapter 125 for me to stamp and sign, and payment of any outstanding fees or reimbursement amounts due to the town of Rhinebeck related to the review and processing of this applications, and receipt of all approvals, authorizations, or certifications required herein from any other town, county, state, or other agency as required to undertake the proposed actions. Could I hear a motion to approve, please? Second? Any questions or comments? I'll pull the board. Kathy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Delise?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Melody? And I vote aye. So you know what you got to do.
I know I got it.
Okay. Very good.
Thanks so much for all your consideration. Thanks.
Okay. We have one other one. Well, we have two other ones. We have one other one with Jeffrey Baker. We approved this the last time around, but unfortunately the noticing wasn't correct, and there may have been some people who were not properly noticed and wish to speak tonight. So, this is the one building the house out there on Sapasco Lake, and we did approve it at our last meeting, but it has been properly noticed now, so if anyone wishes to speak in the public on this application, please feel free to do so at this time. All right. Anyone on the planning board have questions or comments? Okay. Could I hear a motion to close the public hearing, please?
So moved, Sean.
Second?
Second, Joe.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Very good. I don't think I need to read it, you know what it was, because you did it once before. So I'll pull the board. Delise?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Melody? Kathy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay. One more. That was easy, huh?
We didn't have a motion on it, though.
What?
We didn't have a motion on the approval.
Just ask for a motion to accept the resolution.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did it for the public hearing, but we didn't do it for the approval.
we did.
A motion. We did a roll call, but we didn't. Thanks, Melody.
Second. Second.
Anyone want to change their vote? Okay, we're good.
Do a quick aye.
Aye.
Group aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more public hearing, KPH Management, T-Court LLC in Bennett Valley. This is for the master plan application. Is there anything you guys wish to say? So what we're going to do this evening is we are going to review part 2 and 3 of the long form. But if you wish to say something now,
No, we have nothing further to add.
you don't have to forever hold your peace, but it's anything you wish to say. Everyone should have copies of part 2 and part 3. Jim drafted this for us. If there's any people have any questions or anything, we can move along. What I'm going to do down is just go through the headings, and if anyone has any questions under those headings of what Jim has put down, please let me know. Okay? Impact on land, and we have no. The master plan as written did not have any negative, significant impacts, moderate or large impacts on the land. Impact on geological features, we have no effect. Impact on surface waters, we have no. Impact on groundwater, we have no. And I actually did read all of these, so I think Jim did a very good job. Impact on flooding, we have no. As long as Irene doesn't come back. Impact on air, no. Impact on plants and animals, no. Impact on agricultural resources, we have no. Impact on aesthetic resources, we have no. Impact on historic and archaeological resources, we have no. Impact on open space and recreation, we have no. Impact on critical environmental areas, we have no. At the present time, the town of Rhinebeck does not have any critical environmental areas that have been adopted by our town board. Impact on transportation, we have no. Impact on energy, we have no. Impact on noise, odor, and light, we have no. Impact on human health, we have no.
Can we go back to 10? Impact on historic and archaeological resources. We don't think it will have any impact? Is that what this means in the end, that you're saying there is no impact at all?
Certainly no moderate or large impact. If you feel there is no or small impact may occur, in which case no becomes the heading determination.
Well, we have people here representing PayPal. Could we add any more in here?
Sure.
Warren, could you give us some input on this?
Sure. You read the document that I submitted to the board, and the applicants received a copy of some months ago. I'm Warren Smith with the Historic and Archaeological Preservation Advisory Committee, and we visited the site and had a rather thorough tour by my colleague here, and offered some comments thereafter to the board and to the applicant. And the applicant had a chance to respond to those comments, and you may have that response within your package of materials. But as a matter of precedent, it seemed important that the comments of this committee be read into the record, so it becomes part of the public record, and perhaps in future they'll be posted on the website along with other planning board documents and conservation advisory board comments and so forth and so on. So I'll make this as brief as I can, since you may have all seen it. This is dated 2 May. The Historic and Archaeological Preservation Committee thanks the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, the applicants and their consultants for making the revised cultural landscape report for KPH2 as reports available for our review, and for the thorough tour of the site on 16 April. The site, its history, and the owner's current plans are well documented. The circumstance allows a more careful consideration of the details and more specific recommendations from the committee than might be the case with some other applications. It is no overstatement to observe that this site is one of the most important, even defining sites in Rhinebeck and the Hudson Valley. The Astors were a power family in terms of their wealth and influence, and the Rhinebeck estate set the standard for its day, not simply because of its vast extent along Rhinebeck's Hudson River waterfront, but also because of how it was developed. The gatehouses at River Road, the gentleman's farm through which one passed, the picturesque landscape created to border the winding entrance drive, and finally the arrival at the entrance port in front of the mansion were all carefully orchestrated by their landscape designer, Louis Ehlers, to the best standards and most current thinking of its day. The landscape, as much or more than the structures, makes this a contributing site within the Hudson River National Historic Landmark District, the largest such district in the nation, which the town of Rhinebeck stewards with care and justifiable pride. Curiously missing from the cultural landscape report was an acknowledgement or discussion of the paramount importance of the original mansion site. Clearly, this was considered the best location by Ehlers, the Astors, and their architect, Griffith Thomas, on which to build the mansion, or it would not have been selected for that purpose. In contrast, the later casino, now referred to as Astor Courts, was designed as a stage set to be viewed at a distance from the mansion. It was neither conceived nor located to be the principal residence, even though it was later adapted for that purpose when the Astors took the Ferncliff Mansion down. It was not oriented for its use of the river and the mountains. This recreation pavilion, which included tennis courts, indoor and outdoor, squash courts, pool, included a rear porch focused on the grass tennis court below, rather than the distant views to the west of the park, sprawling in front of it. The significance of this is that the careful progression through the landscape was planned to bring one to the mansion site, and around it, then offering views out from the mansion in multiple directions, across the park, across the river, and eventually to a view of the new southern terminus of the casino when that was built. With the mansion gone, the progression changed, although the landscape was not substantially redesigned to acknowledge that. And we feel that Vincent Astor himself must have felt that loss of the mansion's key location since he chose to build the tea house just west of the original Ferncliff site, offering many of the same vantage points for viewing the natural and creative landscape. Along the way, the graceful progression through the park to its climax has lost some of its grace as one passes by the earlier unmarked mansion site of the later residence, sort of oblivious to the original design intent. Subsequent owners have severely diminished the quality and significance of the tea house and its immediate surroundings. And one cannot help but feel that less development, such as removing the sensitive additions, would be preferable to continued development as part of the site. But we recognize how unlikely that is. At the very least, more studies should be devoted to this area, we feel, incorporating perhaps archaeological exploration of the original Ferncliff location, since that's pretty well documented, and possibly recalling the perimeter of the mansion to provide present-day viewers some sense of the views afforded from this preeminent site, the most important vantage point and the most important state landscape in the town of Rhinebeck. There are many other aspects of proposed site development that could proceed in the meantime while this area benefits from further careful consideration. We noted that the recent stone walls of the access drive to the utility building appear as an intrusion, noticeably out of character with the handsome extant original stone walls bordering the estate along River Road. The garden installed in front of Astor Courts is likewise a recent innovation. The recreation of Vincent Astor's miniature train without actually recreating its original rooted structures seems another component of questionable historic value. The proposed mazes behind Astor Courts are not out of character with some estates, as the applicant noted. However, there is no suggestion anything like that ever existed here. At Brindlebrook, the entrance drive from River Road has apparently occupied its present location since that farmhouse was built. Even if the current owner does not wish to utilize an entrance there, the gap in the stone wall bordering the road should be retained, closed with a gate if desired for security, maintaining at least the illusion of access to that residence. There are some additional aspects of the site's history that we didn't find in the cultural landscape report, including the Hucklebush rail line that wound up from the river to the property. A little recognition is offered for the original farm buildings that are now gone. Some of these observations may seem like nits, but given the extensive research that went into the generation of the cultural landscape report, it seemed appropriate to expect the report to be thorough beyond making the case for the current owner's intentions for the site. And then specific recommendations for archaeological investigation were attached depending on what and where, as the project develops, excavation is proposed. And in general, as I'm sure you know, if ground is not disturbed or if things are put on top of the ground, generally doesn't require archaeological investigation. If you start digging, that's generally appropriate. And so again, the applicant has his comments, the applicant will respond to the comments. I don't know if they're going to do that tonight, but I think you all have that information. I'm happy to take questions from the board.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. Any,
I just, given what Warren has said and given the importance historically of the property, I'm just having trouble grappling with a flat-out no to impact on historical and archaeological resources. That's not to say the impact is, I certainly don't believe that it's necessarily moderate to large, but there will be things that will be impacted. There are changes. You would agree. So,
And that is the nature of any kind of...
yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with it, and I'm not disagreeing with the plan, but I am struggling with a no that just says nothing's going to be impacted. I personally would be more comfortable with looking at no or small impact may occur. And let me point out the word may. And let me also point out that this is for a master plan, and many of the issues that would be addressed in this will come up when we get to the specifics of the site plan.
Yes.
So,
Melody, which ones do you feel should have be given a no or small impact may occur?
the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to any buildings, archaeological site or district, which is listed on the national record. It is correct. You would agree with that? And so, let's just use as an example. We are aware that wherever the train may go in the future, that may require additional archaeology. May.
Correct. Yes, we've
So
already-
it may, the question of is there an impact that may occur? It may. So that one for me could move to no or small. I don't believe that I don't know if it's listed with SHPO as an archaeology site. Can you answer that?
What's that again?
The second one, B, is the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites on the SHPO site inventory. Do we know that that is true or false? That's the circles and squares map?
Yeah, basically, almost the entire town of Rhinebeck.
Okay, so that would be it, yes. Thank you, Mark.
Right. Especially in that section.
Yeah. And to your credit, and I just want to hesitate, I rush to say that for everybody, you have always provided us with the archaeological information we need. So this isn't a criticism of what's been received, just simply looking ahead. D, other impacts, I don't know. E, the proposed action may result in destruction or alteration of all or part of the site or property. I haven't seen anything in this that would result in destruction. However, alteration may take place. Alteration has taken place.
Yeah, I think what we attempted to illustrate in all of our presentations is that any of the work that we're proposing that is not a close and careful restoration of the property is occurring in previously destroyed areas.
Well,
Melody, is anything prior to that moderate to large?
pardon?
So
I don't,
any of the
yeah, I don't,
moderate to
I
large?
really don't, I don't personally see moderate to large. I see these as mostly modest changes, but nevertheless changes. The proposed action may result in alteration of the property's setting or integrity. I guess I could argue for setting, not necessarily integrity, because there are new buildings that you're proposing or that you're envisioning, and so there will be changes to the setting. The proposed action may result in the introduction of visual elements which are out of character with the site or property or may alter its setting. That's debatable. There are people, and it was in Warren's report, that feel some aspects of the application are out of character. You have argued, along with Carrie, the opposite. And it's fine for people to disagree, but that has been brought to the attention of certainly us in terms of the HAPAC report. So I would ask him if I'm crazy here.
Well, I think that you certainly should be. I think that Warren's presentation did kind of raise up some questions. I do think that the point that it is a master plan at this point, these things can be considered and they can be altered as the site plan and special use permit actually come up. Regarding what you were just reading on E, I think this is what Sean was just saying. That's kind of more of if A through D is checked off moderate. So it's kind of more of that second layer. So I don't think that, sounds like the other A through D have been smaller minor, so I don't think we need to get into that. But my recommendation would be to change 10 to a yes. And then, but as we just went through A through D, it sounded like there were no or small impacts based on the fact that it's a master plan at this stage.
How do the members of the board feel? Would you be comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think so.
I recuse myself from the beginning of this. So I just wonder what I do.
I'm personally very comfortable, and I appreciate your indulging my whimsy here. But in light of all the work that he has put into it, I think there needs to be some recognition that however small and however important it may be, it's still important that we recognize it.
Maybe just one comment on Warren's presentation. And both Carrie and I have been baffled with the original letter that Warren just read. And its characterization of having ignored or skimmed over certain historic elements in the history of this property. The Cultural Landscape Report is 400 pages long. It's an extensive document, and it does cover virtually everything that I've heard Warren say in that letter. So we're baffled as to what that means that we did not properly cover certain historic elements here. So I know there were two parts to the cultural landscape report, and one did focus on our application. That was, part 2. But part 1 is the real historic, and they're diving into the history of this property. And that's where I think you'll find all of his answers to the points they rose, that were brought up. So just to put out there on the record that we strongly disagree with that letter, because we don't think it accurately represents our application.
Well, thanks for offering that, and as we indicated, if we approve this tonight, we're going to move on to developing specifics, and there will be an opportunity at that time to discuss in detail, the findings of HAPAC versus the information that we've brought forward. So the reassurance is, or I think it's a reassurance, it is to me, this is not the last time we're going to be discussing the specifics of these projects.
A through D, they should all be small.
I think that's what Kim was saying.
Yeah, I think Melody kind of went through that in her discussion when they were marked as,
Well, D would
no.
be other impacts.
Just ABC, no D.
ABC.
ABC. Okay.
Can I just ask a procedural question?
Yes.
If we make a change, what is affected in the next steps? Like, how does it?
It just means we will, I think it, or I mean, we just, we're acknowledging to ourselves that we might be needing to do a little more scrutiny in those areas.
During the approval process of the next phases.
Yes.
Yeah, so after the part 2 is done, the next stage is to do part 3, which I believe we'll be doing shortly after this. And Jim has already kind of drafted up something regarding these impacts. I would just suggest add a little statement to the discussion on impact number 10, just saying that there may be a small impact, but this is a master plan, and this will be discussed in more detail as the site plan and special use permits for each particular phase continues.
And while Michael's reading it, can you be writing that change?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
But procedurally, it shouldn't impact it because it hasn't triggered onto the moderate or large impact that would require scoping.
Okay, I think the last one we had two more. Consistency with community plans. Jim has no here. And consistent with community character, we also have no here. Everyone comfortable where we are? Okay. Evaluation of the magnitude and importance of project impacts. This is part 3. Part 3 provides reasons in support of determination of significance needed must complete part 3 for every question in part 2 where the impact has been identified potentially moderate to large, or there is a need to explain why a particular element of proposed action will not or may result in a significant adverse environmental impact. Since we didn't do moderate to large for any of those, I don't believe we need to do that. Would that be true, Kim?
Can you repeat that?
Okay, it says that the lead agency must complete part 3 for every question in part 2 where the impact has been identified as potentially moderate to large.
Well, the part 3 would be your determination of significance. So even if it's going to be no impact, there just needs to be a quick statement that says that there will be no impact. I believe there should be a little discussion that Jim prepared about some, even though, well, with the exception of number 10 just now, but he did kind of go through discussions on aesthetic resources, historic and archaeological resources, and consistency with community character because of the extent of the discussions that have taken place over the course of this review. And he had provided Brandon lines to review that, and I think it is actually appropriate to have that included in the part 3 to show the discussions and review that has occurred.
Okay, Jim does have, you all have it on page 6 of 7. Question 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic and archaeological resource. And the conclusion Jim came to, work undertaken to assess historic and archaeological resources by the planning board, HAPAC, and cultural landscape expert for the master plan, the development plan that does not create a significant impact on core historic and archaeological resources. But you wish to let and align it that
Whatever Tim says.
Whatever Tim says.
I would say that based on the report, I don't have the acronym in front of me. I would say based on the report from the HAPAC, there may be an impact on historical structures, but based on the fact that this is a master plan, the impact would be little to no impact at this stage. I can provide that language to Gretchen.
Is everyone comfortable with that? Basically, I think this puts us in a position of making a determination of significance for the positive and requiring an environmental impact statement or a negative declaration, which I think would go along with the statement that we just read. But I think I'd like to ask for a motion to make a determination of the negative declaration for the master plan.
So moved.
Second?
Second, Joe.
Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will hold the board. Joe?
Aye.
Denise?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Melody? And I will vote aye, and Kathy abstains. Okay. Thank you. Something I have to sign here in a minute, but, so the master plan is, so far the secret part is done. Now I have better have a, somewhere here I do have, yes, an approval resolution.
I think Howard would.
Yeah, I think he had that look. The town of Rhinebeck planning board hereby files a master plan endorsement. Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
moved.
Second?
Second.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And this, to confirm, this was also posted on the website?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so you
This
have
resolution.
freedom to.
Oh, great. So you've all read it. Basically, what we are doing is we are approving the application for the master plan. That's what this 2 pages is. But you really don't want to hear me read.
But if you beg us.
Could I hear a motion to approve the approval resolution for the master plan for KPH2, T-Court LLC, and Brindle Valley LLC, please?
So moved.
Second.
Very good. Any discussion? I will poll the board. Joe?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Melody?
Aye.
And I vote aye, and I know Kathy is abstaining. Very good. Okay, we have one more item on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Yeah. We have one zoning administrative referral, Malap, HAP Historic. Let me see if I can find it in here. I don't remember what it is, so. Okay. No, I don't think Jim included it. And I don't remember what it is.
Gretchen, do you have
Gretchen, do you
it?
remember what it was?
The building permit application, let me look on my email, I have.
We do not have it.
A permit for roof replacement at 536 River Road.
And should not just refer it to us, to the committee?
Yeah.
This is coming to the committee, correct?
Yes.
She can just refer it.
Okay.
And if
Yeah,
it's only
we
a-
don't, I don't know that we actually have to have a resolution and recommend, right, Kathy?
Well, what we could do is
I
just.
think
could
we do, but we have his language for all the other ones, which is exactly the
Could I
same.
just hear a motion to refer this, a second?
Second, Sean.
Okay, let's take 5 minutes for deep breath. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Anything further tonight? 5 after 8, not bad, Keith. Could I hear a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good.